What I have here with me today is the NuvoSport, yet another compact SUV from Mahindra & Mahindra. What it is essentially a rehashed Quanto. But M&M tell us they've got an entirely new chassis, they've put in a new engine. Does it make it new? Well, we're here at the test track in Nashik to take a short first drive and find out. What does make it look quite new and different is the brand new face. The front end sees the most changes with a large bumper split into two sections that raises the bonnet line quite high. There's a 4-metal skid plate at its chin leading into a honeycomb air dam split by the body color metal from the vertical slatted grille. The grille is then flanked by headlamps with two LED brows. The strong muscular look ends with a scoop in the bonnet to feed air into the new top-mounted intercooler. Around the side, the proportions remain the same with an identical wheelbase, and the only real change are the bigger 16-inch alloys. The rear tailgate gets a new stylized cover for the wheel. As for the cabin, well, the interior looks all too familiar and it's pretty much the same. Of course, the biggest difference that we notice is this touchscreen right here sitting at the center of the console. It's really largely the 6.2-inch touchscreen and the steering wheel with controls mounted atop that are new. Aside from the navigation, it's got all the features that you expect, but the interface tells you it's very clearly an aftermarket unit. The seats also get new leatherette upholstery, but other than that, not much is new. The plastics feel outdated, as does the design, especially when you consider what else would be available at its price. Well, it still remains a very spacious middle row to be in. As you can see, I have loads of legroom. The floorboard is nice and flat, so 3 passengers are always going to be comfortable over here. There's a good amount of headroom too. You sit nice and high, so visibility is also very good. But there is one problem. When you do make this into a 7-seater and the rear seats are up, you find that you sit very, very upright in the middle row because you can't recline the backrest. But if you don't have 7 seats, then you can get pretty comfortable over here. Apart from the TUV 300, this is the only other sub-4-metre SUV to offer 7 seats. And Mahindra claims the NuvoSport is even more spacious than its sibling. So this is how it is as a 7-seater version. Now I've got the rear seats up. I'm small and compact, so getting in here for me was quite easy, and fitting here is not too bad. I mean, I think I could survive for a short journey. But I'm going to show you how difficult it is when there's a slightly taller, bigger person. I'm going to call Rayo in. Rayo, come in here and get in here with me. As you can see, it's not that easy for him to get in here, and Rayo is sitting here with a bit of a crick in his neck and smiling at me because his head is touching the roof. So I think taller people, big no-no. This is just for small, compact people. Come and take a look at how he is in here. Taller people are best seated within the cabin that's spacious and airy. The front seats are large and comfortable, and there's loads of cubby holes for storage too. So in that sense, the cabin is pretty practical. So it's a nice and high seating position, and the visibility is good. You have nice commanding view of the road, but what you really don't have a view of is the ends of the car, and that can get a bit disconcerting, especially that left-hand corner is just invisible. This can be a little bit of a hindrance, especially when you're parking the car or maneuvering it in smaller spaces. We said earlier, the engine is also new. So this is essentially the same engine that's in the TUV, the 1.5-litre M-Hawk, but it's been recalibrated for this car. It's got 100 bhp, but it feels pretty much the same. I mean, the biggest strength of this engine really is its tractability. It's the way you can amble around in higher gears at lower RPMs. You can almost come to a standstill and then just put your foot down and get a move on without any hesitation. So you can really be a lazy driver, and it'll make driving in the city, in traffic, easy. The NuvoSport doesn't really feel sporty, but it pulls nicely off the line and gets up to triple-digit speeds very comfortably too. In fact, this engine revs more freely, and you can go up to about 4,700 or 4,800 RPM. But after 3,800, it's like stretching chewing gum. You get the best out of this engine by short shifting. It responds better to gentle dabs of the throttle than flat footing. You really don't have to work the gears too much, and that's a good thing because the gear shift is a bit rubbery. The engine is clearly tuned for efficiency, and it's possibly the reason why M&M claim that it serves up 17.4 kilometers per litre. Of course, that figure is when you use the Eco mode that remaps this engine to work more efficiently. This M-Hawk engine also feels more refined than before, but it's still quite audible, especially when you go up the revs. Now, the test track at Nashik is really small and not the best testing ground, but even while going around it, we found out a bit about the dynamics. The steering is a bit inconsistent and there's a fair amount of roll as well around the corners. So this car is best driven in a relaxed manner. That is not necessarily a negative, it just means that the NuvoSport is not the kind of car enthusiasts would like, but would probably appeal more to the practical minded. Essentially, this is first impressions and we're just driving on the test track, so it's impossible to talk about the ride. But we do have a small sort of cobblestone patch over here which we can go over. So the ride on this little patch of cobblestone that we have on the test track, what I can say is it does have a soft edge that tends to mask the bumps and potholes, but there's a lot of movement. So I feel that if you are on an undulating road and going a bit quicker, you will get tossed around at the back. That's an inherent problem of a car that's higher off the ground and sitting body on frame. It's never going to be as settled as a monocoque. Still, we do have to say that this chassis that's shared with the Scorpio has made it better than before in its ride quality. Apart from the engine and chassis that's changed, the NuvoSport will also now come with an AMT version. It pulls quite nicely, this auto box. What it's going to do is really make driving in traffic and in city conditions easy for you. Now it is an AMT, so the shifts are perceptible. You do know when it's shifting up or down. It's not exactly smooth. But I have to say that it is an improvement from the earlier TUV, which was very hesitant. The AMTs, however, are inherently bad at tackling hill starts, so how does this one fare? Now where this AMT does get caught out a little bit is when you try going up a slope. And we have a bit of a test slope here on the track, so I'm going to give it a shot. Stop and then, okay. It's not exactly happy to go over. It does tend to roll back a bit before it gets going, and that is disconcerting. Well, overall, the NuvoSport is a new and improved version of the Quanto. It does look nicer, performs and rides better, and even refinement levels have improved. But it still lacks in certain key areas and simply doesn't have the finesse to compete with some of the other sub-4 meters around. Well, despite there being a lot of new things about this rehashed Quanto, including the name NuvoSport, essentially it feels very similar as a product. Now here's the thing, Mahindra & Mahindra already have a compact SUV sitting in this segment, the TUV 300. Well, there is going to be an overlap between these two, and even though we know that this one is going to be priced slightly above and have a lot more features, as products they're very similar in profile. So what this leaves us with is something to mull over. Was there really need for yet another compact SUV in M&M's portfolio? But what it leaves you with is more choice.